Three things cannot be hidden for long: the sun, the moon, and the truth, said Lord Buddha. For unraveling the truth in the many scientific fields, let's salute the spirit of scientists whose revolutionary work has impacted human lives in a big way. But a truth cannot be created, only perceived, said the great spiritual guru Paramahansa Yogananda. Let's find from the scientists themselves for how they perceived the truth. Dr. Anindya Sinha is a theoretical physicist working as a faculty member at the Center for High Energy Physics, Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. Recognized internationally for his work on quantum field theory, Dr. Sinha won the 2016 ICTP Prize. He is also a recipient of the Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Prize, Ramanujan Fellowship, and Swaran Jayanti Fellowship. He is using the tools of superstring theory to understand the workings of nature. Welcome, Dr. Sinha. The significant achievements that you have made in your field, they have come to you in certain moments. I want you to recall those moments.
Okay, it's a very interesting question. Moments of inspirations are a little rare because it involves a lot of hard work, a lot of continuous thinking. One such thing was when I was a student in Cambridge. I did my PhD in Cambridge, and there was this very difficult problem that I was trying out with a few of my fellow PhD students, and we were stuck with it for a long time. And that's typically what happens in theoretical physics, that you have a problem and you're stuck with it for maybe months. It could be even longer than that. But you keep thinking about it, and then one fine day I was sitting in front of my console. Suddenly there was this spark in my head that I managed to use some ideas in this area of mathematics called complex analysis. And I thought that if I use those techniques in the problem that I was studying, then we would be able to make progress. I immediately ran to my friend, my PhD student who I was collaborating with. He immediately said, yeah, this may work. And because he was an expert in complex analysis, he took a few hours and he immediately put it together. Later on, of course, when I did my postdoc, on one occasion where I was collaborating with my postdoc mentor, Rob Myers, again, it was a similar thing that we had made a lot of observations. But then we were discussing ideas, we were chit-chatting, and that's what happens in theoretical physics, that you discuss ideas, you have a bouncing ball, you throw ideas and then maybe they bounce back at you, and then somehow there's some reinforcement that goes on.
But do you think that there was a divine grace? Maybe without that you couldn't have got to those inspirations, although your hard work, perseverance, your determination to do things, and your teamwork and just everything has its own individual role to play. Nonetheless, there was something more than that. Did you have that feeling anytime?
Sometimes it is there, because the problems that we're working on, they are very difficult, and then it's almost like going through a very dark tunnel and you don't see the way out. So in that sense, of course, you're hoping that something remarkable is going to happen. Some element of luck is sometimes needed because, as I was saying, that you're trying out many things. It's not always very systematic, the things that you try out.
Yeah, so can we say that the creativity, when it, unleashed, did it happen serendipitously by chance, or it was very well calculated and you went step by step?
Most of the occasions, or whatever I feel are my most important contribution to physics, theoretical physics so far, most of them are built on thoughts that have taken a long time to emerge. It's not as if I sat down one day and I thought that I'm going to do this. Serendipitous in the sense that there are a couple of occasions where I just tried things and they worked, and there was no reason why they would have worked. Explanations came later. So that happens.
Right. How do you get into the core of a scientific truth? Is there a way to do it? Because it is not that you're always creative 24/7.
If you're badly stuck in something, it's best to actually do something else. Typically, people say that you need to have another creative pursuit. So maybe you listen to music or play music or play something else or play a sport. That actually does help. If I'm stuck for a very long time, I deliberately shut myself out and do something else completely different.
Yes, it means that you have to actually relax your mind.
Yes, absolutely.
Put yourself into some other creative activity, and it takes you away from your current, whatever thought processes are. So in this light, I would like to know if you believe in meditation techniques that are there which actually help in relaxation of the mind. Wouldn't that be very useful for the scientists, because this is something which will relax them? and it'll help to expand their consciousness later into the work that they are actually looking at deeply.
Yes, I believe if it is done correctly, it will definitely be of use because a lot of scientists, especially in context of present days, they are impatient. They want to get to their destination as quickly as possible. I think it is definitely true that we need to learn how to relax our mind better. I do believe that meditation would help in scientific pursuits as well.
My next question is that when the creativity moment unleashes, do you feel, any kind of a physiological manifestation? Like some people say they had a sudden spurt of energy in the brain or in the spine.
It does happen a couple of times. Yeah, you do feel something. Your brain does tell you that this is the right thing. Sometimes you just have this intuition that this is the right thing.
Exactly. I was coming to that. So just throw some light on what you understand, Dr. Sinha, about intuition.
My understanding of intuition is that it does require a lot of background work. You require that preparation, that you require playing around, you require to devote time to whatever pursuit you're doing. And then I guess you need to be in a relaxed state such that it happens at a subconscious level.
It also means actually, to be in tune with your inner voice. Because your inner voice is guiding you. You cannot actually define in words as to what that voice is.
There's a part of the brain which we don't know how to consciously control, which can actually calculate much faster than our conscious part of the brain does.
Right. So in those moments, when new information has started to flow into your system, was your heart open to receive that information?
When the inspiration strikes, you realize it later on perhaps, that you knew that this is the right direction to pursue. So you have this spurt of inspiration. Things become clear later on, maybe not immediately. And then somehow you build on that later on.
Right. Can you give an example from your scientific work to show that yes, it did happen, there was an intuition and you received the information, though it is not very clear as to how to explain that how you followed your inner voice and yes, everything was right.
Closest that I can think of is I was visiting the Galileo Galilei Institute. This was in Florence in Italy. And then I needed to reach somewhere. So there was a calculation that I was trying. It was trying to calculate what is called the critical point of water. It's a very tough problem. It has been unsolved for a very long time. And we were doing it in a different way. And I knew that there were some extra ingredients in the calculation. It's not very difficult to put in those ingredients, but nobody had done it. None of us was on the collaboration. They hadn't pursued it. I had this hunch that if you put in these extra ingredients, it'll work. And it did at that point of time.
Did you feel that you were actually raising your awareness to a level of frequency where you could attract the truth which is already there? Because it is not created. It has to be perceived.
In science, of course, the only thing that you can do is you postulate something, you make a hypothesis, and you see what the conclusions of the hypothesis is. And we can, as scientists, as theoretical physicists, we can only have approximate models. I mean, we'll never be able to say that this is the ultimate.
Daydreaming is a very different state of mind. So do you think that there was anything like that? As you know, the example of Kekyu, that how he came about the structure of benzene.
Yeah, I know that example.
Stories are
Yeah.
well known. So do you have anything like that to tell us?
Yeah, personally, I don't think I have had moments of inspiration while daydreaming as such. But I've had moments of inspiration after, not thinking about something and then going back to the problems that I've been thinking about. But I have encountered colleagues who have said that they have taken inspiration from nature. So, for example, one of my colleagues was a material scientist, and he said that he used to take inspiration from observing various little things in nature. So he took nature very, very seriously. He took the structure of flowers or even the movement of little animals, little insects very, very seriously. And he took inspiration in his research by making these observations. It's like trying to see something else in a different light.
Nature has given us everything. It is right before us. It is only that we have to have an eye to see.
Absolutely. I think that is very true. As a physicist, explaining everything in nature is way beyond what we have right now. I think it'll be extremely arrogant to say that as physicists we can explain things. We can't even explain the way that a petal is formed microscopically. We can't mimic that in a lab. We have to take inspiration from what we see around us in simple things. On many occasions, that's what drives us and that's what keeps us humble. We can't even explain the very simple thing as an ant moving. The great physicist Richard Feynman, he had this very interesting story in his autobiography where he had observed this line of ants who were carrying food from one place to the other. And he spent hours observing them, wondering how they do it. As scientists, we should feel humbled by seeing things around us.
So I just like to sum up and say that it is basically attuning ourselves to the subtle vibrations of the infinite consciousness, which is all around us. And as you rightly said, nature is abundant with those truths, right?
That's beautifully put, yes.
So once we are able to do that, I think we get those moments
are truths. The divine reality manifests.
That's true.
Paramahansa Yogananda said, thoughts are universally and not individually rooted. A truth cannot be created but only perceived. The erroneous thoughts of man result from imperfections in his discernment. He said further, the goal of yoga science is to calm the mind, that without distortion it may mirror the divine vision in the universe.